welcome back to another episode of the Be Who You Came to Be podcast. I am your host, Tara Renze, and today I have a very special guest and a friend on with me today, Rachel DeAlto. Say hi, tell us what you're up to and where you're from.
Hello. Always good to hang out with you, Tara, and super excited for your podcast. But who am I? I don't know. I am Rachel.
I mean, your bio is, I was going through it before the call. I'm like, I'm just going to give you guys a quick rundown and then we
No,
can
don't say
jump
it.
into it. Okay. Well, one, mother, wife, author, TEDx speaker, keynote speaker, runs master classes, TV host. Here's my favorite, attorney. And you have your master's in psychology. I'm like, what is this? Do you sleep? Are you a vampire?
Well, I can't sleep. I have a lot of student loans. I like education. I have fun, and then things sound like a good time. So I'm like, let's do that too.
You know what? So you're the perfect person because the podcast Be Who You Came to Be is really all about that we're constantly reinventing ourselves. We go down these paths and we think this is going to be it. And then we get down them and maybe they work for a while for us, but then we're like, you know what? Something else has changed inside of me and I want to try something new. I want to do something new. And I loved how you've just fearlessly given yourself permission to continually reinvent yourself. And really, I mean, as a keynote speaker specifically, everything you've done just adds to so much credibility. So tell us a little bit, let's go back to 18-year-old Rachel.
Oh, we're going all the way back. 18-year-old Rachel was really annoying. She was definitely, yeah. Oh gosh, she was so annoying because
She was probably fun.
I wanted to do everything. I thought everything sounded exciting. I was going to be an actress. I was going to be a lawyer. I was going to be president. Like I had all of these things that I wanted to do. And I was really, super ambitious. And sometimes I feel like, I'd plow through a friendship or a relationship because I was like, no, I'm going here. And so there was definitely, I was fun. And then at times I'm annoyed with myself when I think back.
Where did you grow up?
I grew up in New Jersey.
In New Jersey. Okay. And where did you attend college?
I went to undergrad at Syracuse. So I was a SU girl, go Orange. And then I went to law school. I came back home and went to Seton Hall Law.
Okay. So what was your undergrad in? Psychology?
So originally, I started school and I wanted to be pre-law because I really did see myself getting into politics or becoming president one day. And so I thought, let's start now. And then I was so bored within the first semester that I was switched into advertising because Syracuse has a huge program in communications and a huge advertising component. And so I switched into that school and got a degree in advertising for my undergrad. Went into advertising, and then I thought, wow, this is terrible.
So did you go work for an ad agency?
I did.
I worked for an ad agency for a while.
No way. What did you do?
I did sales.
Okay, cool.
I've always been in sales, so I've
was
always
gonna
been not
say,
the
that
one
makes sense.
hustling up and drumming up the business. Although I'm full of creative ideas.
That makes
But
sense too. I would see that. Well, they kind of go together when you're in advertising sales, you have to be creative at the same time to work with the clients. I was a media buyer planner, and I got bored of it very quickly. And
well, it didn't pay very well back in the
oh my
late
God,
90s, early 2000s. I think you're younger than me, but it was
nothing.
yeah, nothing. Literally, here's a job in Chicago. It pays less than a teacher's salary. But you're working for a cool ad agency. And
Yeah, you could pretend that you were in Mad Men before Mad Men was out, but yeah, it wasn't exactly as exciting as I had hoped it would be, and so that's when I decided to go back and go to law school. I said, all right, go back to basics, find something else to
so
do.
what type of law were you studying?
So when you go to law school, you have to study everything. So you kind of get a very wide range, and then you can have specialties. I didn't really have a specialty because I wasn't sure exactly what I was going to do. When I was in law school, I got a job as a summer associate. So if you're lucky enough, you can get this kind of cushy job for the summer as an associate, and you rotate through all the departments of a law firm. And so I went through all the departments, and I ended up getting a job in corporate. And then, wow, this is a trend for me. I decided that was really boring. And so I decided to take the job and give it back. So before I even graduated, I quit my first job And I was a law clerk, so I went and worked for a judge for a year. You get 1 year after you graduate law school, you can go clerk for a judge, which was such a cool experience. You're in the courthouse, you're helping with decisions, and
That was not boring.
no, that was so cool. I would have done that for the rest of my life if it paid anything. But similar to advertising, they did not compensate well. And then I went and worked for a firm as a litigator after that.
So how long did you litigate?
It sounds terrible. Not long, because I found something else more exciting as I was working as a litigator. It's funny now that I think about it. This job right now as a keynote speaker is the longest job that I've had. Probably because it's always different and it always changes. But so I was in litigation. And then while I was a lawyer and really had no intention of leaving, I came up with an idea for a startup company. And the intention was I'm going to run the company and I'm going to be a lawyer at the same time. And then we ended up raising about $2 million and it just became, it was all consuming. And so I had to really stop doing what I was doing and focus on the company. And I didn't choose. I didn't choose to kill the company. It died. The company was actually an online offline idea for dating before Tinder, before any apps were out, and it was using cards to connect people offline, and then they connect online, and
Like greeting cards?
kind of no, like business cards that had
Oh,
fun
okay.
sayings on it, and you'd hand it to somebody, and then they were called flip cards, and they would flip it over, and they would have a code on the back, and it would connect people online. So it was before apps. So think back to the
Oh
day
my
where you
God.
had no way to really meet people unless you were, extroverted enough to go up and talk to people.
My mom did, I think I don't think It's Just Lunch, but it was another one, like Match. I can't remember Match. I don't remember what it was, but I remember like going in with her, and it was either videos, like VHS, like videos, or these picture books
Yes,
where people would go
going way
in.
back.
I mean, way back, and I would be like, okay, well, what about this guy? And they really frowned upon you bringing your family in, but my mom was like, "Look, I have to have my daughter with me." Like, we didn't tell them, like, and she's like, "It's very important." And I was just like, "Oh my god, this is so wild." But It's Just Lunch, which, by the way, we used to
They're
laugh
still
about.
there.
It's People are still IJL, I think they call it. But there was this guy when I worked in corporate. This is such a totally, like, this is what happens when you work in sales orgs. You have tons of inappropriate stories, but he would joke and he was married, but he would joke that he's like, um, that he had he went on a lunch with someone. And we were like, what? I thought you were married. He's like, it's just lunch. Like, don't worry. It's just lunch. And
Ah, so many meanings. So
I,
many meanings.
it's just lunch. Anyway, so the dating app business card.
It seemed like a great idea at the time. And then Tinder.
What a great experience to like have and raising $2 million. I mean, Rachel, like that's pretty kick ass.
Yeah, it was a really cool experience. It taught me everything I did wrong. It's one of my kind of foundational leadership stories because it was the first time I led a team and I did it so poorly. And so it gives me this launch pad to really be inspired to do what I do now. But yeah, it was a crazy experience. I just kind of let the world take me. And
How many people did you have on your team?
we had, and full-time employees, it was only about three or four, but then we had so many, independent contractors that worked for us for marketing purposes and just in every area, really trying to develop. This was 2010. So how old am I now? I have to do math. I was 30.
Okay. I was a leader of sales teams in my late 20s. And although did a lot of I mean, I felt like, if I look back, I'm like proud of my leadership. But man, some of those early like leadership mistakes and just being a young leader, I look back and I'm kind of like, "Oh my gosh." But for the most part, I mean, again, I've learned from all of them. Actually, one of my a keynote that I do is called The EQ Secrets to Level Up Your Leadership. And it's really just all these emotional intelligence lessons I learned either by someone gifting them to me of like, hey, here's a great lesson in leadership, or like learning them the hard way of like a crash and burn.
Yeah. I learned
something.
a lot from my mistakes.
Yeah, I did too.
Sometimes I think mistakes are the most valuable lessons we can have in those failures, and it actually took me a while to even talk about the failure of the company because I felt so responsible. And to be honest, the company died because of the technology advancements that we couldn't keep up with, and
Right.
Tinder literally was launched about 8 months after we launched. And as we all know, that swiping and app related dating just took over everything. And it was obsolete before it really had a chance. But I look back at the rest of it and it was a lot of it. There was so much shame around, oh my gosh, I could have done this differently or I could have been differently. And just a very interesting experience. But I value it just the same.
Yeah. My grandmother always said it's on my wall somewhere up here. I have a bunch of sayings, like, "It's only a mistake if it happens twice. The first time was just a lesson that you needed to learn." And she told me that when I was in my 20s, and I really ran with that, and honestly, it gave me just this permission to make mistakes and to be like, "Okay, learn, move on." Because I think as a young leader, there is a lot of that. I know you use the word shame of like, "Oh my god, it didn't work out," or like, I remember, like, making a bad hire, and then that person not working out, and I had to let them go, and it was like, "Oh my god, their livelihood, their family, like, everything depended on this job," you know, and I cost the company money, like, all the things.
And nobody's trained. I mean, there are people who are trained and they are very lucky, but so many of us, I think about in my, late 20s and as I started the company and when I was 30, I thought, wow, I thought I knew so much. And then in retrospect now, it's like, why didn't someone tell me or why didn't someone guide me or find something, to really just take me along that route a little bit more efficiently. And, that's just, sometimes you learn the hard way.
Yeah. But you know what? It's like it's such a normal journey. Like, I think that so many times we look back on stuff like that and we beat ourselves up so much more than we should. I mean, and these are I always joke, it's like, you wake up at 3 a.m. and you're like, "Oh, remember that time back in 1998 when I made a really bad decision?" And you start thinking about something that happened 30 years ago or what, and you're like, "Why in the
I was
hell am
gonna
I?"
say, girl, 1998 was when I made all of my bad decisions.
I made a lot of bad decisions in the 90s too, but they were really fun because I was in high
So
school and
fun.
college.
Yep, college. I was like, that was my
Mhm.
first year of college. Whew, we had a good time.
Yeah. I know the 90s were amazing. Okay, so how long did you litigate? How long did you practice law for before you decided, I want something more fun?
Well, I have to say that was the only one that really it wasn't a decision. It was more decided for me just because the situation that was developing for the company. But I practiced for about 2 or 3 years before. So I did trials. I won a trial. Which was, I think I only had one case that actually went all the way through a full jury trial, which was a lot of fun. And
That had to have been so cool. So were you, the defense or
defense, yeah.
okay.
So I worked for an insurance defense firm, and so we defended a lot of different things, whether it was legal malpractice or personal injury. We did a lot of these cases were actually super interesting. Always was dram shops, which is over service of alcohol. So someone gets served at a bar, someone drinks too much, and then goes out and does something. Sometimes stupid to themselves, sometimes, horrible to other people. And so they come back and they sue the
The
bar.
bar.
Yeah.
I know you're in airports all the time. I was in an airport just last Friday, and there was somebody there, they cut him off at the airport, and I was like, "I haven't ever seen that," but I was so thankful, because there's nothing worse than, like, a drunk person on an airplane, like, it's just especially if you're sitting next to them, and so I told the waitress, I was like, thank you so much," I'm like, "But how much did that guy?" I didn't ask because it wasn't my business, so I wanna be like, "How much did he drink?"
To
Like, the
get
fact
cut
that you were
off.
like she said, "I'm sorry, I can't serve you anymore."
Wow.
Which at that point in time, I'm like, "Just go to the bar next." Yeah,
How far in advance of your flight do you get to the airport to drink that much?
or have a delay.
Yeah.
Although
Oh,
I,
that's
like,
true.
sent a picture, speaking of drinking at the airport, to my brothers. We have an inappropriate text thread of things that only siblings send to each other, and it was at 6:30 AM, and this woman was double fisting tall Miller Lights at 6:30, and my brother just wrote back, he's like, "There's no timestamp at the airport." Like,
He's like,
and
icon.
I mean, I have drank at the airport really early before myself, so
I think the last time I remember, I think it was like 11 o'clock, but I was on the West Coast, so I'm an East Coast girl. And so I made all of these like rationalizations and I had a beer because I'm not a mimosa kind of girl. And I remember
Oh.
saying to the bartender, I was like, is this bad? Because I feel like it's the same as a mimosa. She's like, there's a lot more wheat in this. I'm like, am I supposed to take that to be an insult? I don't know.
A
But
lot
thank
more
you.
wheat.
Yeah, I was like, so it's like bread? I don't know. But yes.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I mean, I usually choose a mimosa or just some champagne, seems very responsible. There was someone drinking red wine on a flight, like, and this man had like, I mean, he must have had 4 red wines, and I was like, "Bro, like, just at least have white. At least that seems a little breakfasty."
I was gonna say, and also red wine on a flight just feels danger. That is a headache waiting to happen.
Ugh, brutal, brutal. Okay, I love all of our
We
sides.
digress.
Okay, so when did you and you've become a mother, how old were you when you had your first child?
So I was super young. I was actually in college when I had my son.
Okay.
So I was 20, I was just shy of 21. I had him, I call him my Syracuse surprise. And so we finished school at Syracuse. And that was part of the reason why I went home to New Jersey to go to law school because obviously, I would need a little support with a toddler.
Yeah,
So
just
yeah.
a little.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of wine back then, even though I was barely legal.
Your parents helped you out?
They did. They were
Oh, that's so
incredible. So,
wonderful.
yeah, I went back home. I moved in with my parents to go to law school. They helped out with my son tremendously. And then, actually, my second year of law school, I got married. So, I met my first husband. There's only two. But I met my first husband when I was 23 years old, and some people make amazing decisions at 23, not me. And so I got married. We were together for about 8 years. I had my daughter with my first husband, and then
Well,
we
you had your daughter, so,
I did.
you got that.
Total
Yeah,
win. She's a
yeah.
delight. So yes, I was very, very much thankful for that lesson. Again, another large lesson in my life, but a good one.
So you got the kids now, you're, like, highly educated, you're doing all the things. When did you get on TV? Because, the Love at First Sight, which we've gotta talk about this because but where does the psychology degree come in?
So it's funny. The company that I launched was in the dating and relationship space, and because of the company got so much press, I would go do press for the company, and they'd say, "Oh, well, come back on and give us advice on things." And I was like, "Advice on what? I'm a lawyer running a dating company. Like, what do you want?" And so they started asking, and I was always naturally, I was always relationship based, and I've always, been the friend that everybody goes to for advice. And so I just started really giving my own advice on TV. And that led to me going and getting certified in coaching because I was thinking I have to have some background. And then kept doing more TV, got the offer to do Married at First Sight. And that was back in 2015, I want to say. And my only background was coaching. I had been coaching for about 5 years at that point. So they wanted a coach. They wanted somebody with a different perspective. And then I did that show for a couple years and realized I really wanted more of a background. More so, the master's in psychology was for me to be able to research. I started getting really into, as I transitioned out of Married at First Sight, into my own research and just really understanding psychology from a more intelligent standpoint versus, I'm not saying that coaching isn't intelligent. I think I was a really good coach, and there was a natural inclination and an intuitive approach to things, but I wanted to understand it from the psychology background.
Did you do online school or did you go back to class?
I did a hybrid from Arizona State.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
yeah, it was still, and I have to say, it is a lot from an adult brain that was not in school for 10 years.
The non-traditional students, that's what we called them,
Total.
non-traditionals. They were great students, though. They always were like, there was no procrastinating.
Yeah. Well, you
Well,
didn't have
you
time
had
to.
to,
You
right?
got kids, you got a
Yeah.
mortgage, you have all these things to do. I enjoyed it eventually, but man, I remember the first assignment that I had, and I was just like, wow, my brain is not conditioned to read like this anymore.
Yeah. How long did it take you to get that? 2 years? Was
Yeah,
that
it was
2
about
years?
2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine going back to school. Like, my brain is not conditioned for it either, and I'm such a creative person that it would be really hard for me to go back to school. Although, you know what I was telling my husband the other day, I'm like, what is a show? And here, this is put it out there to the listeners. Someone will know. I want a great like American history show that's like not that just like talks about American history. Like each episode is like 5 to 10 years of American history. I know it's a lot, but like there's obviously some.
Go on YouTube. That's where my husband literally just discovered YouTube probably like 4 years ago, which is so funny. But we switched over to YouTube TV. And so now, oh my gosh, first of all, it's amazing the switch. But now because it's on YouTube TV, YouTube is right there as part of it. And
Right.
I come downstairs every day and he has learned something new. And sometimes it's things that I wish he didn't learn about, like this apparently vertical takeoff, like solo, like helicopter that he wants to buy. But other times it's, historical things and he's really good at Jeopardy. And so maybe this is something you could pursue.
Yeah, he needs to get on Jeopardy.
He should. He honestly would kill it. He just never would.
I was on a game show.
Were you?
Yeah,
What?
I was on $100,000 Pyramid.
Stop. I love that show.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, wait, that's not No Whammy. Is that No Whammy?
No,
Oh.
that's Press Your Luck. I want to get on that show. Oh yeah, it's back and it is so fun and like huge prizes. Like it's a big, I mean, it's like back in the day, you could win like a grandfather clock. And now you can win like a house with a grandfather clock already in it. We got to talk about Love at First Sight because this show, my mom actually got me hooked on Love at First Sight.
Wait, is it Married at First Sight or Love is Blind? Because they're two
Oh, no,
shows.
Married at First Sight.
Okay, because I was going to say they're
You were
both by
you
the
were
same
Married
production
at First
company.
Sight, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and that's where two people who do not know each other get married and move in together. And
That's kind of all of them at this point. I mean, Love is Blind, they do the same. All they meet behind pods. But Married at First Sight, they get matched by experts. Yeah. So they've never seen them.
and then you were the counselor who came in and like talked with them.
I was one of 3 experts. So there's 3 experts on there now as well. But we're the experts that actually pick their partner. So before the marriages, we go through and you meet with them and you go through all these testings, you do house visits, you meet their friends, and then you pair them up. And then we go in and work with them afterwards. Although I actually don't know how much they do that now. Back in the day, I was very, very much involved. But when I started, it was on A&E. So
Okay.
it was a very different show. It was more docu-style, where now I think it's gotten a little bit more dramatic.
Yeah. Yeah. I didn't know it had been out that long. My mom and I must have watched it several years ago. And I, I mean, I think like 1 or 2 of them worked out.
Yeah, I have one couple. So I was only on 2 seasons, and that was 10 years ago that we shot, or I started shooting with them. And they are still together from seasons 5, Ashley and Anthony in Chicago. They've got 2 kids, and they are very happy. So, it
And
is
do they get you, do they get your, do they send you a Christmas card?
Do people still send those? I don't know. I think I got like 3 Christmas cards this year. Really?
Oh my God, I'll get you
Bless
on my
you.
Christmas card list. It
I
is
want a
like,
Christmas card. I want them. I just don't want to do them.
you know what? Christmas cards are my jam, and they always have been. And it's probably like, just so you know, I never finished the baby. I did finish Ben's baby book. It's not the best baby book, but I never did Jack's baby book. I did like a little something for him, and I mean, I was like, it was just so much work. And but what I did do is I have done a Christmas card every year since the kids were born, the boys, and I was smart enough to save multiple cards. So whenever they get married someday, I'll be able to give them like every
Aw.
Christmas card from their childhood. And we get the Christmas cards out and I decorate like a mantle with them at our house every Christmas. And it's one of the boys' favorite things to go and look and be like, oh my God, remember, like I remember this, or just seeing how, and it's so cute how they grew up and how they change and year after year after year. So
I love that. I wish I did that, or at least documented things more. I look at, for my daughter, because she's 15, everything was on the phones since the moment she was born. Like there's digital everything. So there's such a record of pretty much every aspect of her life. But for my son, who's going to be 25 in 2 months, it's spotty. I am sorry, child. Like there's a couple Sears portraits that are pretty funny, and then there's some gaps. So
yeah.
sorry, kid.
Well, you know what? It's interesting because our boys, so Ben was born in 2007, and he So those first like 3 to 5 years, like it was really before we got iPhones and like everybody went with like tablets and iPhones and all that. Like, and so I remember I asked Scott for Mother's Day like a year ago. I said, "Can you like compile some?" Because we had a bunch of videos, and we did have pictures, but they were digital pictures from a digital camera that was then sitting on the cloud, these pictures. And I was like, can you like put together something where I can actually see the boys? And like, was I a good mom? Was I like completely at my wit's end? Because you just, we're now like, you just go pull up iPhone stuff and people see like their kids instantly. And one of my favorite things to do, like for passing time in the airport, is just to go look back through old
I
videos
do
from when
the
the
same
kids were little.
thing. Yeah.
And I was like, and it was so interesting to see like how it was with the boys when they were, I mean, my boys are like 18, 20 months apart. So, I mean, it was wild for like 5 years. It was kind of a fog.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny. I do that as well on airplanes, and I'll scroll back through pictures and everything. But yeah, I think it's one of those things. I don't like to have any regrets of anything, period. But I do wish that I took a moment and a breath, especially back when like my son was younger. I was a young mom and I had so much going on, and so it was, I don't want to give excuses, but at the same time, like, oh my gosh, if I could just tell my younger self, like, just breathe, take a minute.
I know.
This is all going to pass so fast, and you're going to blink, and they're going to have a real job and pay their own car insurance and have a girlfriend, and you're going to wonder what's next. And it's just, ugh.
I know. I think that's one of the things I'd love to tell my younger self too. Is just like live in the moment and be more present and quit. I think that I was so career focused before I had kids, and no one told me like, hey, just so you know, becoming a mom will change everything for you. Like it's going to change how you feel about work, how you feel about it's going to change your marriage. Like it's going to literally change everything in your life, and just be ready for it all to change and then just go with it. Like I mean, it was so hard for me to be like, okay, why am I not as fulfilled in my work anymore? And like trying to navigate all this, and it's kind of like, I think back, I'm like, oh man, I just wish I would have like just breathed and slowed down and been like, oh, the house is kind of a mess, but we're coloring on the floor. And I love this.
I think you do such a great job of that. And just what we were talking about before we got on, it's, you've always kind of balanced out and been willing to take a step back to make sure that you don't miss anything. And I've always tried to do that to the best of my ability. I have like a max nights out a month. So 6 nights is the max that I'll be away. Not all together. Typically it's one, you know how it is. It's like one night, 2 night. But once I hit that six, I'm like, I'm either bringing them all with me
Right.
or we're not doing it. And so I've been able to navigate that, thankfully, and feel really good about it, because when I am home, I'm home,
Yeah.
and I don't work all night. Honestly, my brain taps out at like 5 o'clock. There is a
Yeah.
natural point where I'm done working. And so it's really nice to have the flexibility to do that and still feel like, okay, I can mom pretty well.
Are you trying to reach your protein goals without the heavy, chalky, yucky, milky protein shakes? Well, guess what? I have something just for you. Meet my new favorite protein, Clear Protein Plus. This is the protein that thinks it's a lemonade. This protein gives you 20 grams of pure protein, zero sugar, and just 90 calories. I love it. It's delicious. It keeps me feeling energized, full, and there is zero bloat. And you guys, I gotta tell you, this is personal. I have known Casey with My Ultimate Edge my entire life. Yes, we grew up in that small town in Kansas together. I trust her. I have used her products for years, and I have seen real results. You guys have to go check out My Ultimate Edge. It is your full body wellness solution, from gut health to hormones to weight loss to protein to energy, and even a new NAD powered sleep routine. I promise you're going to love it as much as I do. Check out the show notes for a link to the Clear Protein Plus, as well as all the other products that I love. I know. I think women, it's very hard to navigate. And I think the thing is like, you have to figure out what works for you, because what works for another mom isn't going to work for you. You really have to know what you want, and then be completely okay with whatever's best for you and your family. And I think there's so much pressure on women, especially like one of the things that I always am like, I'm constantly trying to wrap my head around and figure out like what is the solution. There's all this talk of like, oh, women are exiting the workforce, women are, are not progressing up the ladder. But it's said in a way that is like bad. Like they should be staying in the workforce and they should be climbing the corporate ladder. You know what I'm saying? Like it has a negative connotation the way they talk about it. And instead of being like, how wonderful is it that women are exiting the workforce to choose more flexibility to be more present with their families? Like, no one ever, like, it's not positioned like that. And I think that that's why so many women struggle with reinventing themselves because we have pedestaled education and career and working women and climbing the corporate ladder and this shattering the glass ceilings and all this other stuff. And it's like, hey, what about like everything, like family and motherhood and friendship and like personal care and like all the other things that go into being a woman is like, it's way more than just shattering glass ceilings.
I think there should be no judgment for whoever wants to do anything. And if there's I think it's also it's a sad state when, if a man decides to stay home with his family more or choose that everything is frowned upon in terms of his decisions as well. And so I'm a big fan of you do what works for you.
A
You
hundred
do what
percent.
works for your family. And I have no judgment if, I have a lot of friends that are stay-at-home moms. I have friends that choose not to have children. I have friends who choose to balance it all out. And I think everything they do should be 100% supported because that's their choice. It's their life. I'm not living their life. For me, I love ambition. Like we started talking about me at 18. Not much has changed. I love ambition. Like I love being ambitious. And I think for me, it feels good. And I think for me, it allows me to represent that to my daughter of like, you can choose. You could stay home and do whatever makes you happy, or you could choose a life where you are shattering the glass ceilings. I think we end up in a bad spot where we're typecasting everybody of like, and I know amazing dads who they're better to stay home. They're more patient. They're the ones on the floor, and that works for their family dynamic. And I'm a big fan of no judgment. Do what works for you and what makes you happy, and we're gonna raise amazing kids.
Yeah, I totally agree. Well, I mean, that's the whole be who you came to be message is that what works for someone else isn't going to work for you. And you truly have to find your own path in life. And that's only found by trying out different things. I think it's found out by trying out if you do become a mom, like, do you want to work? Do you not want to work? Like, you won't know until you get into it. And I mean, I'm very much like you. I've always loved ambition, getting out there, doing things. And it works for me because that is innately and naturally who I am as a person. And so honoring that then works for me as a mother as well. But it is we're just constantly trying to figure it out.
Yeah, and there's no balance.
There is no such thing. And you're going to miss things like as a mom. I think that's one thing, like you will have to miss things, but it's how are you showing up when you're there?
My daughter's 15th birthday that I accidentally booked, and it became the most expensive birthday I think I've ever celebrated with her because we
Or
did a
didn't you go,
whole
you guys
week.
went to Taylor Swift, right?
Well, we went to Taylor Swift a couple months before, but that was not for her birthday because I didn't even know I was booked on her birthday. And so first I was like, "Come on, honey, let's go to Omaha." And she's like, "No." And And then I've celebrated her birthday for the whole week, but I ruined it because the day after, so I got home, she had had a sleepover. We had literally been celebrating all week. And she's like, that was the best birthday I ever had. I'm like, oh man.
Oh, yeah, you're like, "Oh, geez." You know what? I was booked for a keynote once on Jack's I think must have been his 14th birthday, and, we actually I was actually emceeing it, and so there was a time where, like, someone wasn't ready to come on stage, and it was one of those, like, moments where they were like, "Just get up there and just chat with people," and so I confessed, I'm like, "Hey, I have a confession," and of course, everyone's, like, really quiet. I'm like, "It's my son's birthday today," and as you can imagine, like, I'm having some mom guilt, so I was thinking it'd be really fun if we all sang happy birthday to my son. So I had this huge ballroom actually sing happy birthday to Jack. Now, of course, I still felt like shit. He honestly did not care. I mean, I had set it up. He went to an amusement park with his friends. He had a great day, and his dad was home, and his brother. I mean, they had an amazing birthday. But I think that was one of those times where I think as mothers, like we have to know that like we felt bad because we missed it and we wanted to be there. And
They're
that
okay.
and it's not guilt. And it shouldn't even be guilt because why should we feel guilty for working and like doing something we love? But it is that moment of like, okay, I wanted to be there. Like I wanted to have that moment with my
I was
kid.
sad. I was way sadder than she was.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
She's like, go
She's
go
fine.
away, kid.
Yeah,
Like,
she's like, "What are you booking next year, mom?"
yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. So let's talk about your keynoting business because you're on fire. If you guys are not following Rachel, you need to. You need to get her book. Well, first off, she is really hilarious. Your sense of humor is so dry and so fun. I mean, I love your memes that you post because so many of them are relatable to me. But you are on the road and you're talking. Tell us a little bit about what you talk about and how did you get into the keynote? I mean, it's kind of a natural progression, right? Like you have all these different tools and you know experience in your bag of tricks.
Yeah, it wasn't really intentional either. This was like the only between between leaving the law for my company and then going into keynoting, it was very just a serendipitous transition. And I had been asked to speak a couple of times, asked to do a TEDx. I didn't even know what really TEDx's were, and this was way, way long ago. Please don't watch them. The old ones are just terrible. I did 3 of them because I was like, oh, that was fun. Let's do it again. And then I started getting asked to speak, and so I didn't really understand what the whole industry was or what the
When did you
possibilities.
start?
So my first TEDx I think was 2012,
Oh
and
wow, you
then
were like early
yeah,
early
like they
TEDx.
didn't really exist. I mean, there wasn't a whole lot of them, and I didn't know kind of how important they would end up being, or just the impression of them. So yeah, I think I did one 2012, 2013, and then I did one in 2019. But I spoke very sporadically. I started, just kind of doing a couple conferences if they'd reach out. I was still doing TV full time, so I didn't really have time to speak. And then back in 2019 going into 2020 was when I was like, all right, this is it. I'm letting TV go. It's, too invasive, and it's just not the most secure industry. And I made 2020 like the year of my keynote. And then obviously we know what happened in 2020. And so I was like, oh, perfect. I'll write a book. And so I wrote my first book, Relatable, How to Connect with Anyone Anywhere, even if it scares you. And so that became kind of this platform of really solidifying relatability is what I talk about. So relatability amongst teams and sales, and then I have the Relatable Leader coming out in July. So that's my next book.
I love that. So I was on the same path. I actually had a company before, um, and I was keynoting a little bit and talking from like 2018, and it was 2020 that I was like, okay, I'm all in. And I actually had a great calendar booked up, and then it all went away. And so guess what? I wrote a book, which I'm grateful for that time. Actually, the pandemic obviously sucked and it sucked for us because I had no idea. Like, I mean, it was so strange that like you would watch a TV show and someone would blow out birthday candles and you'd be like, they just spit all over the cake. Like you were like, or you'd see like you'd
I
watch a
still think
movie with
about
like,
that.
yeah, you watch a movie with like crowded spaces and you're like, oh my God, everyone's gonna get COVID. And that's how like conditioned we were to be secluded. And so I thought, how will they ever put everyone back in a ballroom? I mean, it seemed like
Crazy.
like it would never happen
Yeah.
again.
Yeah. I remember speaking in a mask. Speaking in masks in like 21, I had film on my reel up until like a year ago that had me in a mask, and I was like, wow, yeah, it's just
Oh, they made
wild.
you wear so I got back out on the circuit too, the 2021 summer, but I wasn't masked. They seemed okay, but then there was a second wave or whatever that
Yeah,
nonsense
actually, it
was.
was Kansas City. Kansas City was my masked gig.
You can come as long as you're in a full body armor suit.
Bodysuit. But
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah, so I think we were pretty much on that same path, and then it honestly it took the last couple years to really kinda come back up to full speed, I feel like.
So while we're winding out, talk to us about relatability. Like, how do you coach people on? I mean, I think everyone would love to be more relatable. The best keynote speakers are. It's not even that maybe they have some insanely life-changing message, but they're so relatable that you feel like they're your best friend and that they're talking right to you and that their message because of that relatability factor, it's like they were speaking to you, right? So but I think everybody wants to be more relatable because if you're more relatable, you're more liked. And if you're more liked, probably more successful and have deeper friendships and relationships.
And there's such a cost to disconnection, whether it's physical and mental, or even, in the workplace. That disconnection costs so much in terms of productivity and burnout and turnover. And so there's so much risk to not being relatable, and there's just such a benefit too. And I come from the approach that everybody can be more relatable. I think for some people it's very easy, but it's easy because they're good at the components of relatability. And I break it down, and some of it's a lot about what you talk about, which is that, being who you are and being your authentic self, and not trying to be somebody else. And I think oftentimes when we see people, and there was actually, I started the conversation and quickly exited about, Meghan Markle just had a new show come out, and they're talking about how unrelatable she is. And maybe she doesn't want to be relatable, but it's because
Right.
it doesn't seem authentic, it doesn't seem real. And so how can we show up and be ourselves, be who we came to be, is a huge component of that. And then there's so many other elements of it outside of it, where it's just really, building trust with people. It's communicating in a way that makes them feel like the people in front of you are important, and just really putting yourself in a position where people want to connect with you. And what's the best way to do that? And it starts with you and your self-awareness. And then there's so many things that we can do from an external factor to really improve that connection as well.
What's one thing someone can do right when they meet someone, that kind of have that first time meeting or they're around someone to make them more relatable?
I think the biggest magic trick that you could have, if you are introverted, if you're extroverted, is before you have that interaction, set that intention of what you want it to be. I call that the inspire component of relatability, is how do you want to show up, and really set an intention for that conversation. And one of the best ways to help people become more relatable and want people to relate to them is that you make that other person feel important. How well are you listening? Because the least relatable people I know are the ones who they're not dialed in. They're not tuned in. They're oblivious, or they don't care enough about the people in front of us. And that's where it's relatability is about caring about the person in front of you and caring enough about yourself to be who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. I think just always just asking questions. I mean,
Oh,
people love
huge.
to talk about themselves, and I do think, I speak on this notion of be who you came to be, authenticity. So much of it is just self-regard, and most people, like I've realized over the last few years, so many people are just not okay. Like they have no self-regard. They don't feel good about themselves. Are questioning their life's path. They are insecure. They feel like, they're not relatable. They're not likable. They wonder if they matter. And they think that they're like alone, where, I mean, I think the one thing about relatability, and emotional intelligence is like we have so much more in common than we don't. And so often we have been siloed, and we live in this, nonsense of our own thoughts that have become our reality, that we forget that, we actually do matter. And when someone makes you have that relatability, and you're like, "Oh my God, I felt like a connection with that person. I liked that person." And most importantly, I liked who I was around that person.
Yes,
And
huge.
that's when, like, you're in your most authentic self, is like when you feel good around someone is when you're safe, right? And if you feel safe, you feel good, and you feel like you can honor who you are, and that, and I think that all comes back to relatability.
Yeah. And then you give them the permission to do the same. When you are in
Mhm.
that space, when you have that energy, when you're showing up as yourself and you're feeling safe, you now provide that same space for the person in front of you. And then it's just this beautiful cycle of connection and relatability.
Yeah. Well, I feel super safe around you, especially when we're
Yay.
having dinner and
I
hanging
know.
out when you were in Kansas City, and we got to go have a glass of wine and connect on a million different levels. I have to just ask one more thing before we wrap up. Politics, becoming president, Rachel for president, is this in your near future?
No, I quit. I think I had a delusional idea. No one goes in there and says, let's do this again. They come out looking pretty haggard. No.
No? Gosh, that's disappointing. I really feel like we need new leadership, a new party in general. I feel like we could really use a new party, and so I was hoping that this would be the party of Rachel.
Tara, it's the sane people that are backing away from it. Like that's where I'm like, no, there's nobody. That's the problem. Is like we need some logical base. We need some new new blood in there. And most of the people, I love the saying is like the best leaders don't want the job.
Yeah.
And so I think that's so true in politics. And if we could just start over with all new leaders, but I don't know, we'd have to change the game. I can't do it. There's not enough wine, Tara.
I know. I would love to figure out a way to bring people together, but politics are not in my future either. They would go digging around, and like I think that stuff from the 90s is not going to surface. Someone somewhere
There's a Polaroid.
had a disposable camera at a party, and they'd be like, "Guess what? We've got a photo from you in 1996 at the University of Kansas, and it is not good."
I honestly, that was part of the reason why I abandoned my presidential career way back in the day because I was like, oh, they're gonna they're gonna find some skeletons.
Yeah, yeah.
They're like, do you remember those Jägermeister shots? No, actually, I don't.
Yeah. No recollection of that. It did not happen. Oh my gosh. Well, Rachel, how do people find you? What's the best way to connect with you? And why would someone, like, if someone's listening that's like, gosh, maybe she'd be great to have in our organization and come chat? Like, why would,
Honestly, they're gonna be like, well, she'd be great to have a beer with.
yeah. I
I,
highly recommend a meet and greet after where, have some Jaegers and some beer. Even if it's 11, Rachel will be down for it.
oh my gosh, dying. I am Rachel DeAlto everywhere, website, all socials, and I speak similarly to the audiences that you speak to as well, and sales and team building and leadership. So all across the gamut of where connection could really make an impact.
Oh. Well, Rachel, thank you so much for being here. You have a book coming out
Yeah,
July. Where do
July
they find the book?
29th. Everywhere books are sold. Yeah, The Relatable Leader, Create a Culture of Connection that's based on some of my proprietary research and historical research as well.
Oh my gosh, you are a badass. And you're so dang fun. So fun. I'm so bummed. Rachel and I are part of a mastermind together, but we're not going to be together in Florida here in a week or so. So unfortunately, you're booked, right? Speaking.
Oh, wait, are you coming down for boot camp or masterclass?
I'm going to come for both.
I just found out I am popping in on Monday. So I'm going to be there for so I'm going to come down doing a little presentation on Monday. So I'm going to come in Sunday and then leave Tuesday because I have to go to New Orleans for an engagement.
Okay.
That
Well,
just
I love
literally
that.
just happened. I was like, wait, no, I am coming.
Yeah, I'm going to be there because last year I had just had issues with my schedule. And so this week ended up opening up because we were not doing spring break. And I was like, I'm just going to go. Like, I'm going to go. Yeah. So,
Oh, yay. Well, then I'll see you on Sunday.
all right. Well, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks for having
And
me.
yeah, for those of you listening, again, it's Rachel, my friend Rachel DeAlto. You can find her online. We'll put everything in the show notes. In the meantime, keep shining, be relatable, be unapologetically authentic, and be who you came to be. Hey there. If you're loving the Be Who You Came to Be podcast and thinking, oh my gosh, my brand would totally vibe with this podcast, well, then guess what? It probably would. And I've got some great news. We have officially opened up our doors and are adding new sponsors to the Be Who You Came to Be podcast. That means your brand could be riding shotgun with me every Friday. Well, what does it include? Think shout outs, reels, emails. It is the works. If you've got a mission that aligns with living authentically, living boldly to your truths, and being who you came to be, slide in to my DMs as I would love to learn more about your brand and how we could partner on the Be Who You Came to Be podcast. Until then, keep shining.